So the future drops, and it's a great project.
Yeah.
And it's now a cassette we can buy. It's now a product that's on the street, in the record bars. And people can now say, this product.
Yes.
Are you still on the fence at this point?
At this point, no. My king has been whispering in my ear, Gilbert. And he's been whispering in my ear saying, let's do this. Let's form up a proper record company. You know, you be the creative arm of this record company. I will be the financial arm of this record company. And we run it. I will, manage it, oversee it. You manage the creative talent, create the product, and we push it out, product by product, bit by bit.
Delani was the talent. He was like he was the center for talent. Gilbert had the vision for the business to actually make money out of this thing, and in a sense, he had the access to radio and to bringing in new talent. So the three of them, they pretty much just made that solid unit where they lent to each other's different visions for where we wanted to go.
So I then said, what's in it for me? Because here I am. I'm working these months in the studio. I got 4 songs in the top 10 on 3FM, and I'm not being paid a salary. I'm not making any money. I'm just killing time with my best friend, waiting for a permit to come out. So Shamiso's not paying anything. I'm not making any kind of income from it. What's in it for me? He then offers me a stake in the business. Cut a long story short, that didn't materialize.
Because that's where I was going to take it, that after such a great run and just seeing what's possible, what happens to Shamiso Entertainment because you then depart from Shamiso Entertainment?
Yeah.
So what caused that departure, that moment of departure, and for you to go and start over again? Because you'd worked for this company, yeah.
Yeah, we'd worked, we had set up a product, we had set up ideas for where it was going to go, but it just, I think we didn't get I don't know if it was a case of not getting the financial returns to sustain this. I thought we'd done very well, but as well, I was still young and, learning the game. We had pushed several thousands of records, cassettes in terms of sales.
For the future?
For the future, being distributed by Grammar, which was the biggest distributor of music at the time. And more than anything, we were hoping to get some kind of financial reward from that. I wasn't privy to all the financial papers simply because, like I say, Gilbert had been funding it, and in funding it, he was also overseeing the return of that. And my gripe was not necessarily that we didn't make money, or we did make money. I don't know which is which, I'm of two views. My gripe was that I didn't get the shares that I was promised, because you're doing this with the intent to be an owner, to be a partner, and to work with your mentor. He's my brother, he's my friend. I'd known him for 10 solid years, and I wanted to work with him, but that didn't materialize in terms of him giving me a stake in the business. It then led us to a space where I was challenged in that I've got pressure from the artists who are looking at me saying that, look, you brought me on, I partook in this, this supper, in this project with you.
We saw the product.
At no cost. No one put anything into it, but at the same time, nobody got anything out of it. And
you're the point person for the artist. You're the touch point for the artist.
Yes. I spent time in studio with them, so they know me, they communicate with me on a regular basis, and they're saying, okay, fine, how far?
So
Okay.
they are asking you,
They're asking me how far, and I'm like, I don't know where we're at.
and now it feels
know.
like you are not telling the truth.
Yeah. So it feels like we took money, and that money sort of, because like I say, we're all young. These are 20-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 15-year-olds, you know, who are sitting there asking different questions to say, you know, why are we? And these questions, they're being asked at home. That I can hear your song on radio, you should be making some kind of money. I can hear your song on radio, you should be working towards an album. So what a lot of the artists wanted is they wanted some kind of roster to say, okay, we'll start with David, then we'll jump on to Willem. After Willem, we will then do this artist. After this artist, we'll then do this artist. And then within a year or two, we'll have done your album. Because that's all they wanted to see, the artists. They wanted to get to that end point where they each have their own product.
Because it's about the product at the end of the day. Yeah.
It was about them. You must understand, artists are the most self-centered people in the game. They think of themselves, it's all about them, and you know, if they are not put first, then it's an issue. You know, so they don't care who else in the roster is there, because as most artists would look at, they'll be like, I'm better than David, but yet he's the one who doesn't have the #1 song in the country, but he will tell you he's better than David.
Right.
You know, so we reached that point where I just wanted to see reality for myself, to say, okay, you've made me stay here in South Africa. My permit came out.
Oh, your permit eventually came out.
The permits came out. Okay. I forgo all those things. I said, I'm not going to go to South Africa. I gave up that opportunity to go to South Africa.
So you can own something here.
So that I can be an owner in something, and then I'm not getting a share certificate.
So what's the conversation you have with Gilbert in that moment?
It's really just about ownership. The conversation is, brother, you said you'd take care of me. I need something tangible, because remember, I've been given, let's call it grace, from my parents. Okay? Do something, show us that you've got something.
They just want results.
Right. The first result was the success of a record. Number of records. I've got #1s after another.
So we can see
So
where
we
you're
can
spending.
hear it.
Yeah.
But now we needed to translate into actual physical. Okay, so where does the physical start? For me, this physical starts by saying, here's my share certificate, I'm an owner of this business. We are intending to grow this business, so within 3 to 5 years, we should be in a space like this.
So they can sleep well at night knowing they put money in you,
Yeah.
and that you are not wasting
Yes.
that money /
And just
potential.
and not even just that, just wasting the time, because I'm forgoing the opportunity to go to South Africa. I'm also forgoing the opportunity to take up a professional career. Are you with me? So I didn't study music as a career. I never went to varsity to study music. I went to study law. So here you are coming out and saying, I'm going to become a musician. And then they're saying, all right, let's see where you're going with this. Then you're going to do something. They want to see it materialize. Otherwise, they're like, no, dude, don't waste your time. You're young, you're smart. Take up the opportunity to go into the workforce. Or alternatively, take up that contract that you were given by an established entity, 2 of them, by the way, that are based in South Africa. I've got Yvonne Chaga Chaga and Chico Selotwala saying, we can start working tomorrow. You know, so it needed to be real for me at that point. And that's already now a year already in. A year I've already invested time every single day listening to young, talented musicians coming through to the studio, running to the radio stations to spend hours on end co-producing Innocent Chuma's radio show, pushing the records, doing this and that for the record company. And I'm not getting paid a salary. I'm not getting anything from it. It's just a labor of love. I'm sleeping in the studio 3-4 days at an end, not going home at all, living off bread and chips. You know, that's really what it was. It was just that hustle, sleeping on the studio floor, you know, just to wake up in the morning and record someone else. and keeping that going. So it needed to be real for me, and we had reached that conversation because it had been spoken about, but we never got to that point. Now that the project has finished a year, it's been out a year, it's released, it's made, sold several copies. I believe it sold over 55,000 copies, but I don't know, Mr. Mubawarira might have a different point of view. And I get this information from Grammar.
So 55,000 at the time, equivalent to US dollar, how much was it selling at?
I don't know what it was equivalent in US dollars, but it was selling for about 300 Zimbabwean dollars at the time.
Which could be, let's just put it at $10.
Yeah.
So it made, if it sold 55.
If we work it with today's rates, you'd say about 10 US dollars.
About 10 US dollars, which translates to 550, half a million.
Yeah. So
half a million US dollars.
we're turning over that much. Okay, now you obviously have to discount now the cost of making videos, the cost of making the product itself. The cost of all of
paying
that.
the distributor.
We should have had something left over. That's
like a young 100K or something.
Yeah, that would allow us to start the next project.
Right.
So I was like, look, I need that at least to start off with before you even start talking about salaries or, just give me my 50% of this thing.
And what was Gilbert's position on this?
He wanted to delay it. Not necessarily. I don't think he was refusing to give it. I think he just wanted to delay it. And then I saw that procrastination as not willing.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Got you.
Why? Because you can't talk about the same share structure for 6 months, having had previous conversations already a year ago about it. So you talk about it today, 4 months later, 3 months later, you talk about it again. 2 months later, you talk about it again. 2 months later, after that, you talk about it again. Then eventually you sit down and talk about it. Then you say, no, let's sort it out a little later. Then you talk about it again a little later, and it doesn't happen. So it kept feeling like my goalposts were being shifted. And I then made the bold decision. I left Shamiso with $16 in my pocket, and I said, I'm going to go set up Galaxy.
So hold up a second. When you look at that whole back and forth you had with Gilbert concerning Shamiso Entertainment, when you look at it in hindsight, what would you have done differently? Would you have had the conversation differently? Would you have waited it out? And what was the biggest takeaway from that experience? Because that changed the course of Zimbabwe music.
I wouldn't know if I would have done anything different, because I'm a very straight talker. When I talk with artists about whether they've got talent or not, I tell them straight. The artists I've met who are great, and artists who I've met who are not so great. And I've told those who are not so great, please do not waste your life doing this, go do something else with your life. And I'll tell them in those words. So even having a conversation about shares, or having a conversation about the course of the business and how we're intending to go, it was not a very lengthy discussion. We talked about it like men. We talked about it straightforward. I took away from it, even though it didn't work out the way I had intended. I took away the confidence. The confidence that I'd always believed that the Zimbabwean music industry had. The appetite and the desire that people wanted to listen to local music. That's what I took away from it. It stirred me up in such a way that I felt we can do much, much more. But if I'm not going to then do it with my brother, with my friend, because we are disagreeing on the ownership structure, let me rather set it up on my own. And I had far less, because at that point I didn't have a studio. So I left, well, like I say, with $16 in my pocket. It was just enough to get me back home, taking a taxi, a combi. And when I got there, I'd explained to my parents what had happened. my father, having known Gilbert as well for years, tried to intervene with their discussions and started talking to him about it and, trying to sit us down to mediate with us, saying that young, bafana, maybe you're not doing this right, whatnot. But like again, because there didn't seem to be an urgency with it, it got so desperate to the point where I refused for David Chifunyise's project and Willem Tight's album that I had already recorded and finished. I refused for it to be released under Shamiso when it was done.
Which David Chifunyisa project is it?
The Tauyane project.
That album had Tauyane, remix. Then it had Hapana Chakaipa, it had Kwayedza. Then it had Sonkotsuruma Genga, it had Wabereki. I think that's it, Wabereki and Atenda. And yeah, those were the songs on Tauyane. I don't know if I've forgotten any song.
Are those the only songs you worked with Delani?
Yeah, those are the only songs I worked with Delani.
When The Future had been recorded and we'd finished recording The Future, Tauyane had done so well on radio that I started working with David on a full-on album.
Which cuts were on this album?
Hapana Chakaipa, the Wabereki song,
The Wabereki song, Kwayedza. Oh yeah, Kwayedza.
Yeah.
With the very young Plexidis.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's when I also met up with Plexidis too, at around that time. So I started working on that project under Shamiso. And it led me to a space where I was refusing for Gilbert to release those projects.
So you held on to the project?
I held on to the master of Ndinoda Wangu Kumaruzeva.
The album?
The album, the full album.
Which other cuts were from that album? Is it the same album with Wangu, Zangu, Hangu?
Yes, exactly.
You recorded that?
Yeah. Nyoka.
You did those?
Yeah. So I held on to that. And I held on to the David Chifunyisa album because those were the first two albums we were going to release subsequent to the Future. And he didn't take it too kindly. He got me arrested.
Oh, you got arrested?
Yeah, he got me arrested, saying that I stole masters, and it was a bit.
So how did you get out of that?
Oh no, the police came in. They didn't really arrest me. They sort of mediated. So he just reported this case, and the police were like, "We don't know how to deal with this thing." You've got the master. Okay, so the master sits on a particular type of cassette. It's a digital cassette called a DAT. It's a digital audio tape. Now it's a very high quality cassette. That's where we dump the recordings.
The line recording.
The recordings that have been finished, so
Right.
that it can go for pressing. Pressing being making the cassette and making the CDs.
Oh, word.
Right. So I held on to those DATs. I took them in my
So
possession.
you can't take it for print?
So you can't take it for print.
Because it has to be licensed under a
And
certain label.
I left him a note. I said, I've got these DATs. And I'm only going to give you these DATs because you've refused to give me shares in the business. It's fine. But I'm only holding on to them because I want to see contracts for David Chifunyise. I want to see contracts for Willem Tight. Because I'm afraid that if you release this content, if you release these songs without giving these artists contracts, you are then going to take the money. And these artists will not know what happened to their record sales. I'd already made up my mind that I was leaving Shamiso at that time.
So why take this drastic action?
I felt the artist David Chifunyise and Willem Tight both needed to have a written down legal document that says that they're going to get paid from the records that are going to be released through Shamiso.
Did they get those?
Only after I'd insisted.
Wow.
Because the projects were recorded without any contracts. So David didn't know, Chifunyisa didn't know what he was going to get out of it. Willem Tite didn't know what he was going to get out of it.
They were just happy to be there.
They were just happy to record. And I was like, guys, you got 10 songs on each album. Okay, I've worked. I didn't get paid. You didn't get paid. You didn't get paid. Nobody's gotten anything out of this. If I'm going to leave, there's no one who's going to speak on your behalf regarding getting your cut out of this. This project can be taken by the company and released. And whatever revenues come from it, it's up to now the discretion of the company to decide to give you whatever. So a record company would have just released it and then decided, we'll just give you 5,000 and throw a nice bribe.
For all we know, you would have made $1 million.
Exactly. So I made that assertive decision, and I said to my father, it doesn't sit right with me that I'm going to leave and these guys don't have contracts. I said, even if I insist I get a producer's contract, I know I won't get anything out of it, and I didn't get anything out of it. I never got paid for any of the work I did for Tawi and I or Dinoda Wangu Maruzeva or even the future.
So the whole of Shamiso Entertainment at the time, there were no contracts.
No contracts.
There was no contract for the future.
No contract for the
There
future.
was no contract for David's project which was recorded.
Yes.
There was no contract for William's project which was recorded.
Yes.
So it was you insisting
Yes.
on the contract structure because number one, you had seen it happen over there
I'd seen it happen in
in
South Africa. Yes.
Plus also you're coming from a law background.
Yeah. So I was very insistent that even if I'm going to leave, let David and Willem have a document where they can go and get something from it or say, I'm entitled to get something from this, because I knew that both songs were big songs and the songs that we were working on the project were going to be even bigger.
So you leave Shamiso Entertainment, right? You with $16 in your pocket, you go home, you get arrested a bit.
Yeah.
And that whole drama is playing out. How is your relationship with Gilbert from that point onwards?
If you try to look at it from a business perspective, it would have been very, for lack of a better word, sour.
Right.
But because Gilbert and I were operating at a much higher frequency, we were operating as brothers, I wasn't sour. I felt that my brother was making a mistake. He's my older brother, but I feel he's not doing the right thing. He's not being right. He's not being true to his word.
Okay.
So it was that kind of brotherly forgiver, where you forgive your brother because he's your brother, but he's making a mistake. So I felt that, look, he's not handling this the best way. Either way, we let bygones be bygones.
That is true.
We move forward. I didn't hold any sour grapes against that. I didn't carry it with me. I left it and I let it be. I did, however, make sure that by the time I left, all the rights of the music that I had created belonged to me. So I signed a contract with Gilbert before I left that all the rights. I own all the rights for the future, all the rights for David Chifunyise and Willem Tite.
But I've seen those albums are online under Shamiso Entertainment, though.
Yes. This is where the brotherly thing comes in.
You can do it.
I allowed him to continue to release them.
So you're like, I own them, but you can release.
Yes.
Ah.
So
So
Shamiso contractually gets the permission to make the money it needs to make from those projects. If you're going to give me a royalty from it, by all means do it. But if you don't, fine. And it was really my way of signing off to say thank you. Because of all the years since I was 14, since I was with Gilbert, I learned so much more than what I left behind. And there is no value to that. So even just me sort of saying, I have the ownership for them,
but you can have it.
You make whatever. It was really just, it was a courtesy call But more than anything, it was just my true way of saying thank you for
everything.
for the growth, for the learnings, for the teaching.